My name's Danette Winkler. I am a Danville native. I work out of our Walnut Creek corporate office. So anyways, I've had an amazing career in banking, and I'm really excited for our presentation today because it's something near and dear to our hearts because we work with so many business owners, we meet so many business owners, and it's amazing when it comes to financial literacy, whether it be personally or professionally within your business. How much that I feel like don't see enough of this being talked about.
So I'm Araceli Singh. I am a Bay Area native. I grew up here in the East Bay, and I live in Alamo, so I'm pretty close. My banking career started when I was really young. I was in college. I was attending Cal State East Bay and Hayward, and I thought I really want to do finance. I knew that was going to be my major, and I started working at the bank part-time, and I loved just the banking world and helping people with their financial needs. And I thought I might become an accountant, but then I thought, no, this is where really my heart is and my passion. So I made my career, and it was just so rewarding that I decided, why not help the community, help women business owners, help business owners grow their businesses. And my parents were so proud because I am first generation, and they were just like so supportive. And I actually met my husband in banking, and when we were going to college together. So we're both in banking, which makes it really fun. But I love the Bay Area, I love the people here. And when I joined Comerica Bank, this was really the place where I saw my career just continue to grow. And I have the support of my boss, who's here today, Andrew Badisco, and he's a Comerican for about 29 years now, and Danette and Colleen, who are also longtime Comericans, and I'm really excited to be here. And I'll introduce now Colleen.
I have met with hundreds, I don't know about thousands, I'm not that old yet, but I've met with a lot of business owners over the years. And it is amazing when I've had someone come to me and they've said, Danette, I'm looking for a loan. What do I need to provide you with? And I go ahead and I give them the list, and I tell them, I need your most recent financial statements. And it's amazing how many people come to me and say, oh, well, is June okay? And I'm in December, which is a little bit mind-boggling to me that as a business owner, that you don't have a current pulse of your financial wherewithal. So what I'm going to talk about here in this section, which we've kind of got like a three-prong approach to financial literacy in respect to businesses. The first part is about financial statements. So I hope that when you guys walk away today, if anything, the one thing that you take away from this is that when it comes to financial statements, that it is so important to have current financials that you can go ahead and depend on, that are valid, that you can make educated decisions to pull the right levers as a business owner, or if you are an employee, to understand why your business owner, why your boss is telling you to do these things. It's amazing when I feel like, start out as an employee, you feel like you're just being constantly told to do all these things just because, but when you actually understand behind the cause, I think that it's very empowering to be able to support your boss, to support your company and the mission and where they're going, because every business is unique. Every business's financial statements is unique, and every business struggles with different things. When it comes to financial statements, I would say that every business owner is at a different junction point within what their focus is on. If you're a brand new business owner, your focus is obviously on the future, as well as, of course, you want to know what you're doing right now, but you're like setting the the framework. You're setting the foundation of where your business is going. So your projections is probably where you're going to be a lot more focused. Whereas if you're a more mature business, you might need to be taking a step back and look at what does the history show, because you might be at a point where you want to exit the business and you've worked so hard, you've put so much time, effort, blood, sweat, tears, equity into your business, but how are you going to successfully exit? You want to go and, I don't know, enjoy time with your grandkids, or you want to go and travel, right? And so what your financials show historically is also as equally as important as they are now, because if an investor, if you're trying to sell your business, if you're trying to do an ESOP, an employee stock ownership plan, where you're trying to go ahead and sell your business back to your employees, there's so many different facets when it comes to exiting your business that's just very, very important historically how your business has operated. Okay, so with that, if you could go to the next slide. This is kind of where I was talking about past, present, future. So these are kind of the questions you should be asking yourself. You know, is your business competitive? How do you compare against your other peers when it comes to your financials, whether it be from a profitability standpoint, from a cash position standpoint, from a margin standpoint, and then obviously presently, am I on track to achieve my goals? And then lastly, in a projection or in the future, you know, can I repay, like if you're looking to expand your business, you might need to take on new debt. Am I going to have the financial wherewithal to service that debt? And do I need loans for those future projects, or do I have enough working capital within my business to be able to service that growth? So these are the questions that you should be, I encourage you to be asking yourself. So partners of 2 or 3, just for 2 minutes, and what I'd like you to do is share with yourselves, what do your financial statements reveal about your company, whether it be past, present, or future. Just pick one, because it's a very quick exercise, and then afterwards I'm going to ask that maybe 1 or 2 people share what they presented to their group. So I'm going to put 2 minutes on the clock, and I just ask that you guys work together, okay? So I have probably 2 really good stories, but I'm trying to decide which one I want to tell. So there was an individual. Now, he was a client of mine. I gave him a line of credit for his business, helped him out, was just his regular treasury management, cash management, but he didn't own his building. And he did not know what he needed to do in order to get that loan. When I say that, he didn't know what his financials needed to look like. He didn't know what the ratios are that we look for. So I sat down with him and I went through what a debt service coverage ratio is. And I broke down, this is the ratio that we would uphold you to. This is what we would use to underwrite your loan historically. So he said, I know I'm not there now, but I'm hoping in 3 to 5 years that I will be. So what do I need to do? Like, that's his mindset as a business owner. He's very sales oriented. So he's like, what do I need to do basically to my sales and my margins to get that profit where I need it to be in order to be eligible for a $15 million commercial real estate mortgage? And so those are some of the exercises that we go through. So more than happy to walk you through and kind of just on a little bit of a consultative basis, look at your financials and say, you know, we probably could help you with X, Y, and Z, but if that's not enough for you to take the leap, maybe you have some things that you're working on where you're growing your business, and maybe by the end of this year, maybe it would be a better junction point to take advantage of the loan. And it's funny, a lot of people, they know this, but it's like, it's easier to get a loan when you don't need a loan than it is to get a loan when you need it. And so that's the other thing you should be thinking about. People are very, I feel like, debt adverse sometimes as a small business owner. So it's you got to be smart about it, and you've got to really map out. You can't just say I want a loan just because. There's got to be a good reason. You're going to have to pay interest on it. So what are you doing to make sure that you're covering obviously those costs and then some? Because you don't want to just grow for the sake of growing, grow your revenue just to say, well, now I'm a 50 million revenue company, but I'm still making the same amount, right? So anyways.
You're growing your business, you're at an early stage, you probably aren't going to ask for a huge request, because a lot of times with business owners, they use their own capital to start their businesses, or they use investors or silent partners. But one of the things that I would say is, if you need capital right in the beginning, you have to understand what it's going to be used for. Am I buying equipment? Do I need short-term working capital? Do I need long-term financing? So there's different types of credit requests, right? So I could kind of start, let's say you're a new business. I think the first thing I would recommend is getting a business credit card under the business name to start the credit and start building, right? So if we give you a business credit card with a small amount, we could increase it as time goes by and you continue to grow. And then also a line of credit. So lines of credits are always really good because, like Danette mentioned, it's better to get credit when you don't need it than when you need it and your financials may not show a really good picture, but it's a good thing to have and it will really help you in the long run. And our lines of credits, the way we look at them is like we're looking at them every year. So if you start off with, let's say, $1 million line of credit and you need more, we could look at that line of credit for you as your business continues to grow. And one of the other things that you can finance is equipment. So you could do an equipment line of credit to help you with those purchases so that you're not using all of your cash to finance your business. Next slide. And so here are the short-term needs and long-term needs. So short-term needs, again, are like lines of credits, business cards. Long-term needs would be like you're buying a vehicle, real estate, and equipment the way we look at it is what's the life cycle of an equipment, right? So you can look at those types of loans, and they all have different interest rates as well. So that's one of the other things that you want to look at. Lines of credits will always have a variable rate. They won't be fixed. The rates are based off of prime, most of them, and your business cards also have an APR, right? So you want to take advantage of those interest rates also when they're low, so that you're taking advantage of the cash flow, right, for your business, and you're looking at all of those things and say, okay, I'm ready for the next step. So if you want to buy a building, then you've already built the business credit through your business credit card and your business line, and the bank trusts you, right? So you have, just like we have personal credit, you have business credit, and the more history you have and you're paying everything on time, then that score is going to continue to grow, and it's going to be very positive for the bank. And again, going back to the business financials, that's where we're going to see the whole story of your business, how long you've been in business, how good you're managing your books, and the cash flow part is what we're going to look at to underwrite the request. And so again, the characteristics are there. I'm going to leave you guys with this slide. I won't go super into detail, but these are the reasons why you would use credit. And calculating working capital, this is huge, right? Because working capital is how you're going to pay your loan back. How are you going to pay your credit back? And usually what we look at is your current assets and your liabilities. The slide shows just a general rule. You want it to be 2 times your current liabilities. So I really highly recommend that when you're looking at your books every quarter or every month, that you're looking at your cash flow, because when you're going to a bank and you're requesting for credit, that's what we're going to base our decision on. Okay, next slide.
Basically, you need to have enough money to cover your liabilities, right?
Yeah.
You need to have enough receivables. You need to have enough
Yes.
so that you can cover your short-term or even long-term, obviously, obligations. But
Yes.
first and foremost, your short-term.
And we'll also look at your personal obligations as well through these credit requests. So it's not just your business, but also as a guarantor, as an owner, we're looking at your personal FICO. We're looking at how much debt you have in case something goes bad with the business, right? We're going to use the guarantors, the owners, as the source of repayment. So all of those things really matter. This is an example of how you would use a line of credit and why having the line of credit in place before a big order comes through or a request that you need is so important. So Jill's t-shirt shop had a big order. They had a contract to do 2,000 t-shirts, and so she wasn't going to get paid, right? So when the company put the order in, Solus Software put the order in, she wasn't going to get paid until after 30 days. And so she needed working capital to help with this order. She already had the line. So this is a perfect example of like how she was able to fulfill the order. She was able to make money and everybody was happy. And I'll leave this with you guys. Just goes into detail about business credit cards, and the next slide is about business lines of credits and things like that. So, do you guys have any questions about any SBA loans? Because that's also something that we would also, I know you spoke about having an SBA loan in the past with Comerica, but that's also one of the other vehicles that we use for businesses. Like a business credit card, we're not going to ask for business financials, right? So you could start a credit card pretty easily. But as far as like having the CPA and having those financials, I would highly recommend, and if you could learn QuickBooks, that would be nice, because then you understand the information, right, prior. And then to your other point, you had mentioned if we as bankers advise like what entity you should open, we don't advise on that. That's more of a tax, right, liability, and those are the things that your CPA or an attorney would help you with. But yeah, because you could start off as a sole proprietorship, right? So a lot of the business owners, when they start off as a sole proprietor or a C corporation. But yes, having the right entity is definitely really important, because as you know, that you could always change your entity. So if you start off as a sole proprietor and you want to change to a C corp or an S corp or an LLC, like you can do those things later down the road. But definitely, yes, I would highly recommend that you have that guidance. What those financials will tell us, like who are the owners and what are the ownership percentages. Because if you do have structures that are more complex, then we are going to need the financials from the other owners, the other partners.
Okay, so there's a different process
Yes.
from a single business owner to an LLC to a corporation, where there are different entities.
And different documents that get filed.
I think
that we
the
would
other thing that drives where within a bank or whatever access to capital you're looking at is the revenue size of the company. So a smaller business, could be put within a team or a group or a service entity that's just dedicated for small businesses under, let's say, 5 million. So there could be streamlined process, and you've seen even a lot of fintechs kind of blow up over the past few years, where it's online with certain information that you provide. So there are different sources of capital that could be more appropriate for a business under 1 million or under 5 million. And then to Araceli's point, sometimes with a C corp, the ownership, you'll have multiple owners. So there could be some maybe personal underwriting of some of the strength. If the company doesn't kind of stand alone with its own assets, that there's support. So it's not so much, I think, the entity type, but the revenue size and the complexity of the business. And then oftentimes the entity type is similar in terms of the size of the company. I have spent half of my career on the credit side, underwriting companies, providing businesses access to capital, and about halfway through I got recruited to go work in the investment advisory team, investing the liquidity of the companies that I was working with, and then I fell in love with liquidity. Part of it was I didn't have to do any loan documentation, that's not, we don't have to talk about that. But I did, I fell in love with it because I could marry the two. I could look at a business, underwrite the business model, look at access to capital, how that company was working, and then say, okay, let's talk about your cash position, let's talk about your growth projections, let's talk about the 4 things that you do with your cash. Cash is king, and that will probably never change in terms of that terminology. The one thing you do with your cash is you spend it. The other thing you do with your cash is you pay the government. The other thing you do with your cash is you donate it. And then the last thing you do with your cash is you invest it. And all of those things work in tandem. So I am not here in 5 minutes to give you the lesson on how to do that. But I think it's all in tandem. Because, right, you got to check if you're spending too much money, then you have less to invest, right? But it could be at the top. Let's say you're flush with cash. That does become your priority. So you have a huge tax liability. Oh my gosh, how do I, So those are all, we really look at a holistic view with the liquidity. And it can come, from a lot of different equations. But again, the thing that we want to look at first, when we look at all of these things that we've talked about today, is we're here to help create value to the enterprise. And it could be value to the enterprise that has shareholders and investors, and they're vested in getting a return. But if you make them happy, you're going to get more capital and you're going to be able to grow. Could be your nonprofit organization where you've got your donors and your grants and you're doing amazing, impactful work. We want to help grow that enterprise. It could be a business of professional service people that are, or medical, that are having, this talent that's doing incredibly great work. We want to be able to come in and help provide enterprise value there. So that's why those 4 ways that we use our cash is super important. What you'll see in the last few slides that are attached is idle cash. So cash, it's just sitting there, back in the day in the mattress. Now it's sitting in a checking account, it could be sitting somewhere because, first of all, people, it's very emotional. People want to have access to it, especially with what happened last year where there were some issues with banks and people were scared about having access to their cash. So it's oftentimes cash is just sitting there. And companies don't know how much is appropriate to sit there, what are my other options, and we like talking about solutions there. We are finally in an interest rate environment where it's meaningful to have your cash even in a money market account or a CD or a savings account. Now we're seeing some discussion from investment advisors from the Fed saying, oh, we're going to see 2 to 3 rate cuts this year. So that has an impact. So now what do? Do I go put money in a year-long CD and get a great rate for the next year? Or do I keep it liquid because we just don't know? So looking at that idle cash and having some sense, some advisory, what do you need to pay your bills? Do you have access to a line of credit? Can you invest in something that's more lucrative than what you're paying on your line of credit? Definitely not on your credit card, but maybe on your line of credit. So those are things that we would like you to start thinking about. How much cash is sitting in the bank account? How much of that cash do you need to spend to pay your bills? How much do you have a tax liability coming up? We have to pay taxes next week maybe. Maybe we don't, but we have to be mindful of that. How much can we invest? And then what type of products do you want to invest given your business model? The other thing, and you talked about QuickBooks, absolutely having automation tools, and some of them will be banking tools like electronic payments and online banking and moving money around, but having systems in place where you can scale. You don't want to be, 3 years out and be like, oh my gosh, I've been in an Excel spreadsheet and now I have a big order, or I have an investor, or I have some succession planning and I don't know what to do. So having even simple, great systems in place that can scale, super important. And then again, financial education, everything is moving, and the geopolitical economy, the interest rate environment, it affects all of us one way or another. So how those things affect you in the business or the service that you're providing, getting your ecosystem together. It could be professional partners, it could be other leaders that are in similar spaces or size companies. It could be calling, any of us and just saying, what are your clients doing? Because this is something that I'm struggling with. Can you share with me, like, are other people struggling with this, or is it just me? But ongoing financial education, whether, things are being pushed out to you or you're searching for it and building your own ecosystem. So I'm going to kind of just stop there because the rest is pretty much a narrative, but I want to answer any questions. And that prime rate will go up with movement at the federal level, which it has. I think there were 5 or 6 increases to the prime rate over the past, since kind of pandemic time. Yeah, and then if interest rates go down this year, we'll see that prime rate go down pretty much with that same tranche. So if it goes down by 1/4% or 0.5%. So that's why it's an interesting time this year, kind of paying attention to the economic environment, because those floating rate, those lines of credit are floating rate loans. They're not fixed. But you weren't getting any money on your money market account, you were getting 0.5%. Now you can go and we have 5% CDs, and you can go to other banks and there's 4.5%, 5% liquid investment products. So it's both, and it's really managing kind of those short-term, long-term needs. So this is, kind of compound interest. It's basically putting your idle cash to work. Checking accounts earn nothing, although most commercial checking accounts, meaning if you're in a business account, will have something called an earnings credit rate that offsets fees. So that's important to know that you even have that money working for you. And then just again, the interest rate environment. So if you have, $10,000, sitting in your account, you get, let's say 4% annually. That 4% is broken down into 12-month cycles. You're going to earn interest on the interest on the interest.
I love this package. This package just came out last year. One of the cool things is that this checking account that only Comerica offers, by the way, no other bank is doing this, we have an interest, it's an interest-bearing account. So we have an earnings credit that you get on your deposits. So depending on how much money you put into the account, the more you put in, the higher the rate will be. But this, I recommend everybody take a flyer, and I can walk you guys through the process. It's very easy. The proposal is done in a couple of days, and we're big on this maximize a business account for business owners. Yeah, and like a lot of what I've been noticing is we've been saving clients on fees, because a lot of banks are charging fees for all of these services where it's just combined in a package, and we're going to be able to mirror all of those services, and the cost is a lot less. So it's a good product.
Judy, thank you, and the Chamber and WEI and everybody for participating. This was truly a delight to meet you guys all. And yeah, feel free to ask any additional Q&A after. We're here for you guys.
And the cookie